We got Mr. Nightmare Man with another video. Happy Thursday or Friday or Saturday. No telling when y'all go see this video. No telling when y'all go see the video. 9 out of 10 I'm posting for tomorrow, which is Friday. You know what I'm saying? 9 out of 10 y'all gonna get this video before wrestling come on, or after wrestling, or in the middle of wrestling. If you are a wrestling fan, you know. This YouTube is my plan B. You feel me? Driving trucks is my plan A. You feel me? Which I will start fully driving trucks. You know what I'm saying? Probably for about a year. Probably gonna be the end. Probably gonna be the end of this year. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I gotta get down my one of my shits, and then I'm gonna be on the road. I'm gonna be still doing videos on the road. It's gonna just be different. You feel me? So y'all gonna bear with me. We gonna. I'm gonna take y'all through the whole process. You feel me? That being said, let's go ahead and get into it, man. And get it, man. I hope I don't find shit that scare me the fuck off. Hopefully. Y'all know I don't get scared, man. Come on, man.
I've been a trucker for close to 15 years now.
Damn.
This happened to me in 2000.
See, they gonna be me greeted in the motherfucker. I ain't gonna lie.
Driving an overnight haul through the Mojave Desert in California, headed for a destination in Arizona. I think I was delivering appliances. I don't really remember. It was pitch black darkness in every direction. The headlights on my semi were really dim at the time, and I'd been putting off getting them fixed forever. Usually I couldn't tell the difference, but since there were basically no other cars on the road, it was much more obvious. I remember having to strain my eyes every few minutes to make out the road in the distance.
Before I got it,
that could have been a horror story in of itself. I was debating.
I was doing hot shot with my cousin. I ain't gonna lie. Before I got in trouble, that's why I was saying, like, y'all know that's my, you know what I'm saying, that's my career path. Y'all know I had got it. If y'all don't know, last year, about around February, March, I had got in trouble. I had got a little, you know what I'm saying, high speed chase or whatever. And they kind of, you feel me, that kind of, you know what I'm saying? I thought I lost my CDLs. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Thank God for the prosecutor, bro. Thank God for that nice ass prosecutor. I ain't gonna count. He want
pulling over for a couple hours.
One for him, boy. I wouldn't have had my CDL. Damn.
I desperately needed the money at the time, so I kept driving, even though it wasn't fully safe. I figured since it was basically a straight line, it would be okay. I think it was about an hour before sunrise when I saw something approaching fast in the distance. Worried about hitting an animal, I slammed on the brakes. As my truck screeched to a stop, I realized what was in front of me. A car with its hazards on.
Oh,
the weird thing was that it was in the exact middle of the road, like literally on the double yellow.
Trying to set you up.
What was even weirder was that the passenger door was wide open. My truck stopped maybe a foot before hitting it. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm a pretty fearless guy, and I know my way around a bar fight. Because of this, I wasn't really scared when I saw the car.
Not gonna lie, me
more
too.
Curious than anything. I thought maybe someone needed a jump or something, so I reversed.
Yeah, when it comes to violence, I'm kind of, you feel me, like, me too, you feel me? I don't need no gun, but it's always best to have a gun on you when you're trucking, because I done heard some horror stories for real, like some real, like, people getting, you know what I'm saying, over, you know, TVs and shit. Like, when it comes to the trucking shit, you make sure you have your gun no matter what company you work for. Me personally, I'm gonna have some.
The semi and
regardless, man.
I thought about throwing some flares down, but decided against it since I hadn't seen a single other car on the road besides this one. I got out of my truck and made my way over to the car. It was a warm, still night. I remember thinking how strange it was that there was almost no wind. It was also really quiet that night.
That's kind of weird.
The faint click of the hazards was the only sound in what felt like the entire desert. I got a little closer to the car. I vividly remember that it was a new-looking red Ford Fusion. I approached the car a little cautiously. Like I said, the passenger door was wide open. I walked around the car and stopped in my tracks. It was completely empty. I made sure of it too, checking the back seat and anywhere someone might be laying down. There was literally no one inside. All of a sudden, I was much less sure about the situation. I was expecting someone to need help of some sort, even someone who took a nap in a really dumb spot. I certainly wasn't expecting this, though. The car was literally empty.
Oh,
I
hell
cast
no.
a few glances over my shoulder, feeling a lot more uneasy now. I kept whipping my head around, looking in every direction. I felt like someone was going to charge me or something. The problem was, it was so dark that I couldn't see that far in front of me, except for what was lit up by my truck's headlights.
I already got in my car,
It
kept
was
driving.
eerie.
My truck's kept on.
I waited a while longer, thinking about getting back in my truck and forgetting about this whole thing. Someone was out there, somewhere. Against my better judgment, I decided to keep investigating. I looked inside the car, but everything seemed completely normal. The key was even in the ignition, although the engine was turned off. I got back out of the car and made my way over to the trunk. Might as well have a look, I figured. I went to open it, but it wouldn't budge.
Oh,
It was
man.
locked. I grabbed the key out of the ignition and unlocked the trunk. Still, though, the thing wouldn't budge. It was jammed from the inside somehow. I opened the back door and tried getting at the trunk through the back seat.
Goddamn Mighty
To my
Morphin Power
surprise, it
Ranger?
actually opened. There were 3
Whatever in there he found, he bought it on himself. Or somebody come out from the other side and they attack him, he deserve it. You're doing too much, buddy. The truck.
garbage bags back there, along with a rope that was tying the trunk closed. I remember glancing one more time over my shoulder before reaching for them. The coast was clear. I must have been within 5 inches from one of the bags when the loudest gunshot I've ever heard rang out into the night. I slammed my head on the roof of the car in shock. I didn't even think. I threw the keys on the front seat and got out of the car as fast as I could. As I was climbing into my semi, I heard a grungy voice yelling in the distance. He yelled "hey" a bunch of times, and his voice seemed to be quickly approaching. I scrambled into the semi and turned it on. I threw it in gear as fast as I could. I remember cursing a bunch of times as the engine initially stalled.
Where you going at?
That's when I saw it. As my truck began pulling out, I saw a person standing at the trunk of the car. It was a short, husky guy with red hair. He was wearing overalls and shin-high boots. In his left hand, he was holding a small shovel. In his right, though, was an old-looking hunting rifle. We locked eyes for a few seconds as my truck began to drive past him. He didn't move. I remember him not looking crazy or anything. He had this worried look on his face. As I passed him, he dropped his shovel and started waving his hands. He yelled "wait" a few times, but I wasn't staying there another second. As I drove away, I watched in the rearview mirror as he ran after my truck for a few seconds before sprinting back to his car. It was clear he wanted me to stop, but there was absolutely no way I was going to do that.
Hell no.
I stepped on him, pushing the semi much faster than I should have. I drove for like 5 minutes and started to think I was in the clear, but then I saw headlights fast approaching behind me. I remember feeling more scared than I've ever felt in my entire life. I called the police and told them what happened to the best of my ability. That's when the car was basically right on my tail. It started honking like crazy at me. I honestly didn't know what to do, so I just kept driving, praying to God he wouldn't try and ram me.
Where the police?
After like 15 minutes of this, he cut in front of me and hit his brakes, forcing me to slow down.
I would have ran that
I was
bitch over.
just about to crash into him.
I would have.
Finally, some flashing police lights appeared ahead.
Ooh,
The
GTs.
Ford veered off to the right and sped into the desert, disappearing from sight. I pulled over and waited for the officer to show up. I frantically told him what had happened, but the useless cop decided to get a report from me rather than chase the guy down. I was so pissed about that. I told the guy like twice that he could probably catch up to him if he left now.
Hell fucking cop, man. What the fuck? Oh my god, bro. Some cops in some states are just dumb. I can't, you know what I'm saying, accept that fact. You feel me? Some cops are just dumb. You feel me? Or scary. You got some cops that actually is scary. Like, dead ass. You got, I don't even know why they got the badge on. You feel me? They only wear the badge because they protect it. It's like somebody getting in the game. Getting in the game and joining the police force is the same thing. It depends. Some people is destined for this shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? You destined to be a gang member. Like your uncle, your granddaddy was a, you feel me? Your granddaddy was a detective. Your granddaddy was a SWAT member. All that. You be the destined. Some people be scared. Like they was probably once bullied before, or you know what I'm saying, getting bitched on, so they joined the gang or joined the police force. That's how that shit go. So People be actually fucking scary just when they got on the badge. That's basically what I'm trying to tell y'all.
The cop told me not to
It's the
worry.
same thing.
They'd do a thorough search as soon as backup arrived. He sent me on my way and said they'd call me if they ever had an update for me. They never did. None of my buddies have a story this crazy, and I've told it more times than I can count. I know what you're probably thinking. That guy was definitely burying bodies.
Definitely.
That doesn't really explain why he had such a small shovel, or why he tried to follow me. The bags in his trunk were also too small for that, although some of my buddies think he might have done some dismembering. For my own sanity, I like to think that he was burying some other kind of animal, maybe putting a diseased dog out of its misery, or some dangerous snakes. I really have no idea.
Nah, not doing all that.
I've never been totally comfortable driving through deserts late at night after this experience.
Don't drive through a desert. Check. I ain't driving through no desert car. Fuck.
I'm sure you've seen some of the more modern videos online where truckers will document their daily routines and provide tips for each other. Or maybe you haven't.
That's what we're gonna do on this channel.
Being as I'm on the younger side of this industry, every time I open TikTok or YouTube Shorts, that's all I see. I won't get into it, but I had to drop out of a pretty prestigious university for some personal reasons, and people always tell me I could have been more than a trucker.
Damn.
It's honestly not a bad gig.
I hope people do that.
I've been making deliveries for north of 2 years. Obviously, the only strenuous part of the job is the long hours. You can never truly gauge how the isolation will affect you without experiencing it firsthand. My only advice would be to make peace with whatever demons might be lurking in your subconscious, because they'll definitely eat at your brain in the lonely hours.
Definitely.
That's what happened to me, anyway.
Definitely, it will.
This happened to me 3 months after getting employed by my first company.
Them demons.
I was basically as new in this trade as one could get. I was driving from southern New Jersey to Lafayette, Indiana. 12-hour drive. 12 hours driving might not seem that crazy.
Yes, it is.
Factor in the fact that I just completed an 8-hour trip. That should put things into perspective. I wanted to get deliveries done as quickly as possible, so I opted to drive through the night. I'd get to Lafayette just before 3 a.m. Things were going smoothly. There were virtually no other cars on the road, so I was able to push the semi a little faster than normal. About halfway through the drive, I remember reaching down at the center console to chug a Red Bull, but there weren't any. Of course, I had forgotten to restock my truck after completing my previous delivery. After slapping my dashboard a few times, I groaned in frustration, knowing I'd have to stop somewhere. There was nothing I hated more than having to make stops during my drives. I might be unique in this, but I always get exponentially more tired when my vehicle is immobile, even if I'm only stopped for like 20 seconds. After glancing up at the navigation, I figured I had no choice.
Keep driving, though.
Either fall asleep on the road or stop and get an energy drink. In my brain, those options were pretty much equivalent. Reluctantly, I pulled into the first service stop I saw. I had literally no clue where I was, probably somewhere in Ohio at this point. Too late, I realized this wasn't actually a service stop. It was what looked like an abandoned gas station and a repurposed convenience store. I'm not sure if there's any better way to describe it. Either way, it looked like there was another quick stop store not far up the road, so I figured I'd go there if anything. I parked the semi and made my way over to the first convenience store. To be completely honest, I was expecting one of two things to happen. Either the place would be open or the door would be locked. You can imagine my surprise then, when the door swung open into a pitch black store. I looked around, hoping maybe I'd get lucky and there would be a drink or snack left behind. Just before I was about to turn around, my eyes adjusted to the darkness. I picked up on a faint glow emanating from the corner of the room. I made my way over to it. The glow turned out to be coming from a back room of some sort. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened the door slowly. To my pleasant surprise, there was a plugged-in refrigerator against the wall.
What's up with all these curious cats, man? Cause I ain't doing all that. I ain't gonna lie to you. That first door, if that first door was open, I don't know if you said it would, but I definitely would have went in there first though. For how weird it looked. Long thing race.
Eagerly, I opened the door, but found nothing. Literally nothing. The shelves had literally been removed, like the whole appliance had been gutted. As I was shutting the door, I was 90% certain I heard a clatter from the main room, like something hitting the floor. I froze for a good 10 seconds. Had I imagined it? There was no way.
Man, get the fuck up out of here.
Quietly, I walked back into the main room and looked around. Nothing. Part of me wanted to keep investigating. I didn't have time for this, though. I walked out the entrance door and basically jogged to the other shop. It was open, thank God. I paid for my drink and made it back to my truck. Something about this whole stop felt wrong. I needed to get back on the road as soon as possible. I took one last glance at the abandoned store and noticed the door was now open. I was 100% positive I had shut it behind me. It wasn't my job to figure out what was going on.
Nah, hell no.
So I started the engine and merged my semi back onto the highway. The caffeine started kicking in and snapped me out of my tired haze pretty quickly. My mind began to wander, and I started thinking about how bizarre that whole thing had actually been. I guess a SWAT or an abandoned building wasn't the strangest thing in the world, but my brain couldn't explain that refrigerator no matter what theory I thought of. I tried to forget about it and kept driving. It was then that I started noticing weird movements in the curtain behind me. Sweat started dripping down my forehead.
No.
I watched in the rearview mirror as the curtain seemed to billow and move.
No.
I didn't have the air on. I thought the worst. There was someone in my truck.
I would have crashed out.
I didn't have any weapons on me or anything.
Oh, God.
I discreetly punched in the nearest police.
This nigga. Dumb. See? Y'all better start having weapons with y'all. No matter if it's a fucking knife. Have it with you. Nobody never finna have me hostage like this. I tell you. They gonna kill me. They gonna have to. They gonna fucking have to.
Station on my phone. The drive there was the most tense and horrifying 20 minutes of my life. I kept imagining that person reaching out to grab me or trying to crash my truck. Finally, I approached the police station. I stopped the semi as close as I possibly could get and basically ran over to the police station. In seconds, my truck was surrounded by police, and after I opened the back, what I saw will stay with me for life. The police pulled out 3 homeless-looking people, 2 men and 1 woman. They were wearing rags and were wrapped in nasty-looking blankets. One of the men was armed with 2 switchblades.
Oh, shit.
All 3 of them refused to talk, but stared menacingly at me as they were getting cuffed. I have no idea what they wanted.
Can't get mad at me, bitch. I don't know y'all. You lucky I ain't do y'all. You just being real. That was me personally. It would have been 3 dead people at the back of my goddamn truck. You asked me.
My name is
Ken. And I would have crashed out.
I've been a trucker for varying companies for
That's just me, though.
15 years now. Things have become pretty routine at this point. Pick up the goods and materials, verify them for accuracy, and deliver them as instructed. We're not paid by the hour, so efficiency is the most important thing in this line of work.
Mm-hmm.
For someone like me who's been doing this forever, I like to think I can outwork all these young guns that are snapping these jobs up. This isn't always great, though.
Nah, not really, because you miss time with your family and shit, but shit. My family be alright, nigga. I'll send them money. FaceTime. That's what we got FaceTime for. FaceTime all day. Nigga, I'm making that when I'm gonna let y'all know now. It's gonna be YouTube and that. YouTube and that. For the first year I'm in trucking, definitely gonna be YouTube. Well, when I ain't gotta do the team shit, y'all still gonna be getting video, but it's gonna be separate. It's gonna be real different. You feel me? I can't wait for y'all to go through this whole process with me. Not to mention we got Grand Theft Auto 6. You feel me? So that's gonna be. I can make so much money off that shit. Then I'm gonna be posting that on this channel and the second channel. Make sure y'all go, you know what I'm saying, go subscribe to my second channel, which is my gaming channel. But
usually I can't wait, myself to the absolute limit when it comes to functioning on barely any sleep. 4 years ago,
better
I was
quality
working for a warehouse based in North Dakota. For anyone who doesn't know, North Dakota is one of the flattest states, which makes trucking a little easier. This also meant that skipping out on a few hours of sleep could mean the difference between employment and getting the sack. It was a chilly Tuesday morning in May. The beginning of the week meant that more loads needed to be shipped, which meant more work for me. I wanted to knock it all out in one shot, so I traced my route into Montana accordingly, planning on not stopping even once to sleep. I hit the road a few hours after lunch, expecting to reach my destination very early the next morning. I pushed the semi as much as possible, doing maybe a couple over the speed limit. It was getting late, and I remember rubbing the crust from my eyelids as the clock ticked past midnight. I was having trouble keeping my eyes open, but I only had about an hour left in this drive, so I gritted my teeth and kept going. My buddy Tristan, who was also a trucker, introduced me to smelling salts when I first started out.
Whew.
If you don't know, smelling salts are basically some kind of crystals in a little bottle. One sniff and you're wide awake.
You up.
You have to be careful though. Too many back-to-back uses could be dangerous.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what Tristan told me.
Yeah.
They burned my nose a little bit.
That shit.
Whenever I needed a boost, I reached for the smelling salts first.
That should have you up.
This was one of those times.
Fuck a Red Bull.
Big whiff and shot my head back.
I forgot about that.
I felt the adrenaline course through my body, and I hoped the feeling would last the rest of the drive. A half hour shot by, and I was really struggling. I felt myself start to doze off, and the blare of my truck drifting into the shoulder jolted me awake. This was getting dangerous, I thought.
Oh, yeah,
I had to pull off.
Yeah. You need to chill
I was
out.
all alone on the highway, but there was nowhere to pull off. There was just woods on either side of me. I slowed the truck down, searching desperately for somewhere to pull over. At this low speed, my headlights pierced through the darkness, and I was able to see a lot more. As I looked around, I saw something that confused me. There was a purple dress lying in the middle of the road. What the hell? I thought, rubbing my eyes. Was I hallucinating? I blinked like 6 times just to make sure I wasn't going crazy. It was real. I approached the dress with my truck and stared at it as I rolled by. In hindsight, this should have been more of a red flag, but I think I was just too exhausted to process what was going on. About 200 or so yards away, I passed a pair of shoes. Now I was starting to freak out. What the hell was going on? I passed the shoes, praying to God there would be a place to pull off soon. My old man, David, was a super religious guy, so I clutched his old cross and hoped he would come through for me. A little further up the road, I saw a bunch more random clothing, some of which looked like little kids' clothing. This time I stopped the truck. The panic started to set in.
Okay.
Something was very, very wrong.
I ain't gonna say nothing.
I sat in the driver's seat with the truck at a standstill. I was expecting something to happen, but it never did.
No did it.
So I did what my instincts told me to do. I stepped out of the truck and went to inspect the clothing. I still remember the feeling of the chilly morning air piercing my skin, which definitely helped my exhaustion. I approached the pile as cautiously as I could. It was indeed kids' clothing. It looked like there were both boy and girl pieces of clothing in the pile. I looked around into the woods, but I couldn't see much of anything in the darkness. I had my head on a swivel, worried that this was some kind of trap. I decided it was not my business to figure out what was going on.
You gotta go.
So I made my way back to my truck. Just then, I heard a crunch from the left. I whipped around, trying to see what was there. I stood there, waiting.
In all honesty, when you read the book, I know a nigga like me, this is no lie. I swear to God to y'all, I read that book 4 times. The CDL class book, I read it 4 times. I studied the apps numerous times. Like, I literally studied the book 4 times. I know I'm going to have to read about 2 more times. You feel me? Because it's been a couple months. But I know once you got a load, you can't get out that truck and unlock your door and all that shit. Like checking all this shit like they've been doing, checking the cars and checking all. I mean, you go to the store and shit, but for the second story, but for this story, like you go and knock a clothes in the road and you got a load on the back, you cannot get out. Call the police, dispatch that bitch in. I know that for shit show. I know that for sure.
To hear another sound. After about 30 seconds, there was another crunch, but this time from the opposite side of the road. My survival instincts kicked in, and I sprinted towards the truck. I jumped into the front seat, but just before I slammed the door, I heard a child's scream ring out. I froze.
I would just heard it
bursting out of my chest. I was caught at a crossroads. I wasn't going to fight some random people in the pitch black woods, but I couldn't just abandon some helpless kids.
This ain't Carter Rose. I'm leaving.
Before I could make a decision, another almost identical child's scream rang out.
Oh no, they boys.
Without thinking, I turned the truck on and pointed its nose toward the spot in the woods where I heard the noise. My headlights lit up about 30 yards into the woods. There were 3 or 4 people, one of whom was holding a massive speaker. They ducked behind a couple trees as my truck lit up, but I had exposed them for just enough time to make out what they were doing. They hid from the light before I could really make out any distinctive features. But I swear on my old man David's grave, they were holding up a speaker, trying to lure me into the woods with a fake kid screaming. I was just in shock. I just sat there, staring at the trees those people had just hid behind.
It's crazy,
I reached for my phone to call the police.
It's some
But
gullible
before I finished dialing, I heard a thump from the body of the truck. Someone had thrown something from the other direction. I was done. I turned back to face the road and slammed on the gas. As I sped off, I could make out a person on the other side of the road. He shouted something I couldn't understand before launching something at the truck that cracked the glass of my passenger side window. I drove the final hour in silence. I was too scared to process what had just happened, but there was no way in hell I was stopping to sleep in those woods.
Yeah, no.
I completed my delivery and then knocked out. I must have slept for 10 hours straight. When I woke up, the first thing I did was call the police, who told me they'd investigate those woods and give me any updates. I then thought about the whole thing and how stupid I was to get out of my truck. I should have just minded my own business.
Oh,
The
there.
thought of some kids being kidnapped or worse was just too much for me to ignore.
Yeah.
To this day, I still have no idea what those people were trying to do. I don't know why they didn't just rush me when they had the chance, or what they were planning to do to me if I ran out in the woods after the kids screaming.
You know what they were
In
gonna
all
do.
my years of being a trucker, nothing has ever come close to being as strange or downright terrifying as this experience.
Hey, you know what they were gonna do to your ass. They were hey man, when y'all if y'all if it's some truckers out there, make sure y'all be safe, man, for real. Don't put yourself in messed up situation. Don't mess with no lot liquors. Don't mess with none of that shit, man. If you ain't got it, use some lotion. You see some clothes on the road, keep driving. You see a car in the middle of the road, look, look, look. And if you got a truck, make sure you have your big ass light so you can look around. Because I'm having everything, big light, weapons, all that. Make sure you feel me, ain't no spikes in the road or nothing. Keep driving. And if you're sleeping, make sure you always pack up after every trip. Please make sure you pack all your snacks, your Lunchables, and all that shit before all your trips, before you won't have to stop nowhere. Unless you got to go to the bathroom, make sure you take your keys out the truck, put them in. Make sure you lock the fucking doors. That being said, see you when I see you. Let's ride, nigga.